Good morning, everyone. The topic of the presentation is geospatial assessment to evaluate the factors affecting land use changes on the sustainability of agriculture in peri-urban areas. Special reference to paddy lands in Gampaha district, Sri Lanka. So I'm Pasindu Jayathilake, currently working as a lecturer in Department of Geography, University of Kelaniya. So my co-author is Dr. Badra Herath. She is a senior lecturer from the Department of Geography, University of Sri Jayawardanepura. So let's move to the introduction of the research. Land use and land cover changes are the results of many interacting processes that operate over a range of scales in space and time. Land use affects land cover with various implications, and land use change may involve in shifting to another different use or an intensification of the existing ones, as well as identification of land use and land cover classes are very useful for developing a quantitative link between human activities, environmental impacts, and their spatial aspect. Accurate and up-to-date land cover change informations are necessary to understanding and assessing the environmental consequences of land use and land cover changes. Land use map can assist politicians, decision makers in targeting and prioritizing risk mitigation activities, as well as policymakers and research communities to discover underlying causes and consequences of land use land cover changes to achieve the sustainability of agriculture. Moving to the problem statement, you can identify the population increase as a major phenomenon across the global as well as the local context. As a result of that, human activities or anthropogenic activities have been increased up, as well as the alternation of the Earth's surface also observed. Therefore, the pressure on the agricultural lands have been increased. That may cause the global food crisis at the end of the day. Considering the specific location, Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division in Sri Lanka, which locates in close proximity to the Colombo Central Business District and Gampaha town. This DSD also have some land use and land cover changes, and there can be changes in the agricultural land use as well. Therefore, as a developing country in a tropical region, country with an increasing population and urbanization, and a country that has a food risk should give their major concern on its land use and land cover changes in order to the sustainability of agriculture as well as the food security. Sri Lanka as an agriculture nation, and it is a must to give major attention to agricultural land use changes. In that backdrop, the main objective of the research is to investigate land cover changes and the factors influencing the agricultural land use changes in Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division in Gampaha, Sri Lanka. In order to achieve the main objective, we have utilized three specific objectives. They are as to identify the spatial and temporal changes in land cover of 1956, 2000, 2014, and 2022. To identify the existing agricultural land use with respect to other land use in Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division, and to identify major factors for paddy land use change and factors for change. This is the study area, the Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division with red color border that is located within the Gampaha district and close proximity to the Colombo district. Considering the material and methods, you can identify, I have outlined the material and methods according to specific objectives. In order to achieve the first two specific objectives, I have utilized only secondary data. The data were obtained from statistical reports, digital data, Google Earth images, 1-inch maps, and other kinds of 50,000 maps. The data were obtained from the data sources like Land Use Policy Planning Department, Survey Department of Sri Lanka, Google Earth Pro software, and so on. The third objective was achieved using primary data, and the data collection were done using field observations and semi-structured interviews. as well as the respondents for these semi-structured interviews were landowners and farmers of the agricultural lands that the agricultural land change was observed. Moving to the sampling technique, we have utilized purposive sampling technique, and there were 30 respondents. Each respondents included respective officers who are in charge of the respective agricultural activities, as well as the agricultural land owners and the laborers who work in the particular agricultural activities. Considering the overall methodology objective-wise, initially we have developed land cover maps for year 1956, 2000, 2014, and 2022. In order to map 2000, 1956, 2000, and 2014, we have utilized the help of 1-inch map, metric map, and digital data on metric map of 2014 year. The 2022 land cover map was created using the digitization method of Google Earth Pro images, screen digitization, and editing the digital data as well as screen digitizing were utilized in order to create these land cover change maps. Then the accuracy of land cover changes were concerned using the kappa coefficient accuracy checking method, as well as the change was observed using the change detection matrix. Based on the identified land use changes or results of the first and second objectives, we have utilized a purposive sampling technique in order to identify the respondents for the semi-structured interviews. The semi-structured interviews were happened in the identified location where agricultural land use have been decreased. The results were obtained from the third objective were analyzed according to a priority index as well as using thematic analysis. Then, based on that, we were able to identify the factors for agricultural land use changes, specifically the paddy cultivation. Moving to the results, you can identify what were the land use and land cover types that we have identified, specifically coconut, forest cover, home gardens, marshlands, paddy, rubber, other cultivations, water bodies, scrub areas, built up areas, and so on were identified. Among them, coconut, home gardens, paddy, and rubber cultivations were identified as key agricultural land uses in the Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division. And we tried to identify or we tried to achieve the null hypothesis. There is no change in land use and land cover in Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division. But according to the results, the null hypothesis is rejected and it confirms that there is a significant change in land use and land cover in Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division with 99% confidence level. Accordingly, we were able to identify that there was a change in land use and land cover in Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division. Let's see those land use and land cover changes. According to these spatial maps, you can identify the land cover categories that we have identified in 1956, 2000, 2014, and 2022. The initial stage, there were very few land categories. Later on, they have been increased up to several numbers. Moving to the detailed analysis, you can identify the rubber cultivation has been decreased considerably when it compares with the other agricultural cultivations. In addition to that, you can identify the coconut cultivations have been decreased as well. You can see that gradual decrease went through the bar chart as well as through the spatial maps. In addition to that, paddy cultivation also have been decreased significantly from 1956 to 2022 concerning some problems to food security in the country. However, we were able to identify somewhat increasement in the home gardens as an agriculture practice in the Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division. Considering the specific cultivation types, you can identify the paddy cultivation, which is the key and staple food of the country, have been decreased specifically in the Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division, could be identified as one of the peri-urban agriculture center in the country. For example, there were 33.6 square kilometers of paddy land in 1956, and that were decreased up to 33.18 square kilometers by 2000. Then that was further decreased into 28.23 square kilometers in 2014, and further that was declined up to 22.64 square kilometers by 2022. That means we were able to identify some gradual decreasement of paddy cultivation or paddy lands in the Dompe Divisional Secretariat Division. Considering the overall picture, you can identify the majority of the agricultural activities were indicated and decreasing pattern. However, we are giving our major focus to paddy cultivation as well as the other non-agricultural activities such as built-up areas, forest, marshlands, water bodies have been indicated and mixed trends regarding their extents. For example, we were able to observe an increasing built-up areas as well as decreasement of marshlands and other things. Considering the change detection matrix, you can identify between 1956 and 2000, the paddy cultivation has been converted into coconut as well as into home gardens. Moving to the 2000 and 2014, the same things we are able to identify. The paddy cultivation have been converted into coconut cultivation. The land extent is 1.43 square kilometers, as well as the previously paddy land 8.20 square kilometers have been converted to home gardens. Considering the 2014 and 2022, we were able to observe the change of paddy cultivation into home gardens and other types of agricultural cultivations. In addition to that, we were able to identify major reasons or factors that cause to paddy land use change. For example, high cost, physical barriers in the field, changes of the weather pattern, labor shortage, less market demand, legal issues regarding the paddy lands, animal detriments, and education level increase up of the agricultural families were some reasons for the decreasement of agricultural land extents in the particular DSD division. In addition to that, left side you can identify some statement that was given by our respondents when during the semi-structured interview, and they also confirmed that these kinds of factors or reasons were there during the period. Considering the conclusion and suggestions, 10 land use categories were obtained as mentioned here. Among them, we were able to identify that agricultural lands have been decreasing since 1956. However, the urban areas were increasing up in addition to that. Factors for paddy lands reduction were identified, such as high cost, physical barriers in the field, change of the weather pattern, labor shortage, less market demand, legal issues with paddy lands, animal detriments, and education level, and issues with social status also included there. Further, as the suggestions in order to conduct or continue the sustainability of the paddy cultivation, the research identified these solutions. The first one, develop youth agriculture community organization in order to attract the younger generations who are not actively participating in the agricultural activities. In addition to that, establishing rural companies will help to increase up the productivity of the agriculture practices, because majority of the lands are very small scale in Sri Lanka. Therefore, we can't utilize somewhat complex and new technologies in the agricultural lands, as well as conduct cultivation with pre-signed agreements with the public-private partnerships, as well as conduct training sessions for laborers who are working in agricultural fields as unskilled laborers or laborers with less educational qualifications, as well as maintain the professionalism for laborers in order to attain good social status through the agricultural activities, as well as provide government incentives in order to achieve some targets of the agriculture, specifically the paddy cultivation. So these kinds of suggestions are proposed throughout this study, and that will help to enhance the sustainability as well as the productivity of the paddy cultivation in Sri Lanka. So these are the references that I have been utilized for this particular study. So thank you very much for your attention for this interesting research. Thank you.